Hi guys, Jakob here at Danish Photography, Interfit brand ambassador, and we are live at the Photography Show 2020. I'm here to do a colored gel flower photography masterclass. This is a pre-recorded session, but I say live because I will be on hand to answer any questions that you may have as this is going on. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to catch up with me afterwards. My details will be on screen at some point. And what I'm doing today is something that I do quite a lot of, but normally when you shoot flower photography, at least when I do it, I tend to then colorize the photo afterwards in Photoshop. You get more control of the light that way, or more control of the colors. However, being more efficient, shooting it so you have it straight out of camera straight away is of course a very nice way to shoot. So what I'm going to show to you today is getting it right straight out of camera. We're going to have some colored gels on to color the flower as we shoot. What I'm shooting with today is a Nikon Z7 that you'll see on the side here. It's got the Nikon 105mm 1.4 lens. I absolutely adore that lens and I cannot get enough of it. And what we are then using for lighting, as you'll see over here behind me, is we've got 3 Interfit S1s. I've got one as a key light, which is hitting my wonderful, beautiful model, Jakob Gronkjaer.
Hi guys.
And that's set at a certain power that I'll call out in a second. Then I've got 2 lights either side at the back that you'll see, which have got a magenta and a cyan gel on them, just for a bit of balance in between. Read up into color theory, you'll see there's a lot into that, but I've just gone for those 2 colors because I always like that combination. I've got an assistant Jill here helping me with throwing some flour as well, so that we throw that up behind Dasher so we get a massive big burst of flour that we can then colorize with the gelled colors. Okay, let's give it a go and see what we get. And for camera settings, as you're watching, you'll see I'm shooting at ISO 200, 1/200th of a second, f6.3. Most photographers have a go-to setup that they like to use. This tends to be my starting point. We've just about got enough ambient gone now from the evening shooting that we're doing here that we don't need to worry about it with that setup. My lights, as you were going to ask, we've got 3 lights here. We've got 4.0 on the front light and 6.0 on the 2 backlights for the Interfit S1s. They go up to 500 watts. So you're looking at, we're around about half power on all 3 of them, or not quite actually, we're quite a bit lower than that. But it's enough anyway for what we're doing now, so you'll see. So let's give it a go. And Dashu, if you can just move a little bit more this way for me, a little bit more. There we go. Okay. And I'm going to count to 3, Gilles on the count of 2, you throw, Dasher on the count of 3, you throw. Here we go. And 1, 2, 3.
So one of the things I like to do when I'm shooting flower shots is to take multiple shots in quick succession. Now, where you've got 3 lights and one of them is on a higher power setting than the other 2, i.e. the front light in this case versus the 2 backlights with the colored gels, what you'll find is that if you're shooting too quickly, you'll force a misfire effectively. And whilst that might not always be your intention, as you'll see here, actually having just the backlights and the colors creates a really nice silhouetted image, and that in itself can be very, very cool. So don't always think that you need to have perfect lighting on the model. You know, sometimes actually having the model not lit can make for an equally effective image.
The thing about flower photography is it's an imperfect art. It's worth throwing a couple of times and see what you get. I quite like these first 2 shots that I got. We're going to give it another go just to see if we can get a different blend in colors. I'm going to call out Gilles for not quite throwing at the right angle. We're going to get him to throw a bit more flour this time, okay, and a bit further. In fact, a lot more flour and a lot further. You can never have too much flour at these things. Let's give it another go and see what we get this time. Okay, are we ready? And here we go in 1, 2, 3.
So one of the things you have to contend with when you're shooting flower shots outdoors is of course the wind. We were fortunate when we were shooting this, there was only a very light breeze, but you'll see it across these two images here, how the flower moves across the frame from the right hand side to the left hand side. That was intentional in terms of where I placed Gilles on that side, because we could feel that that was the way the wind was moving, and you'll see in the second shot how it's much more even across the entire frame in the background, where the bluey light on the left hand side, camera left hand side, is coming into that, lighting that flower, and you then get that colour shift from the blue across to the magenta and that sort of purpley in between. There's quite a big clump of flower on the camera right hand side, and if I was to really work this, I would probably aim to have a little bit less flower over there. Could probably dial the power down a little bit, could probably move the light slightly away from where the flower is, or just have the flower thrown further away from the light, or even just wait a little bit, because as the flower settles, that it becomes a more sort of misty haze rather than the clumps that you see towards the bottom of the image. Really that's catering to your own tastes in terms of how you want to do it, but it's a good example of how actually shooting this shot more than once will give you different effects and different styles and different looks, so you just need to go with what works for you.
Nice, really nice. We've got lovely colours in that. Okay, we're going to now try a slightly different setup. We're going to come in a bit closer and focus on just the prop that Dasha has. She's got a wonderful little summer hat on with her summer outfit. I'm going to go ahead and come closer. We're going to cover that with flour, and I'm going to have her toss that up into the air. The flour will come off it, and then we'll light that up. So feel free to point your heads over that way towards the light again. I'm going to do a quick test fire of the lights. Really sure they're all fired there. And here we go. In 3, 2, 1. One more time. What we'll do, Dashu, if you keep the hat up towards the top as you throw it. Okay, here we go. And 1, 2, 3.
So in this final shot, you can really see that nice wave of colour moving from the blue on the left hand side across to the magenta, and then that lovely purple in between. Working with props is a great idea. It's a great way to get a mass of flour and kind of create this wave. The hat was great because the problem with flour is often if you just throw it with your hands, it just really clumps together. Whereas if you have it lying on a surface, whether it's like a fan or a scarf or even a long flowy dress or something like that, when you swing that around, or you flail that around, or the model flails it around, it disperses the flour in a really lovely fashion, as you'll see here, and it worked really well. So I probably could have shot this a bit higher in the frame in order to get more of that arc, but you can see clearly how the gels are lighting that flower, and it comes across really nicely, I think.
Nice. I'm just going to take that shot for good leisure. So there you have it, guys. Really simple setup, nothing particularly complicated about this. Do take care, you know, don't treat flour with disregard. It can burn if you don't watch out. So you've got to be careful when you're using flashes that put out the amount of power that the 500 watt S1s do, or even a little speed light. Those things put out a lot of power in that split second that they fire off the light. So keep a distance between your lights and the flower. It's always important. And if you don't believe me, just Google, you know, flower bombs or explosions, and you'll see what I mean. Don't Google that. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy the rest of the photography show and what they've got to offer this year. They're obviously doing something quite special that they haven't done before. Please also check out Interfit stand. They got some amazing offers on at the show, I'm sure, and I look forward to speaking with a few of you either after the show or even during the show. My door is open. I'm always happy to chat to people that are interested to listen, and for that matter that have anything interesting to say about photography. Can't get enough of it. So until next time, enjoy yourselves, have a great time, and stay safe. All the best.
So I hope you all enjoyed that live shoot. I really just wanted to demonstrate how easy it is to create something really cool straight out of camera with a really quick and dirty, rough and ready setup, if you like. With this next set of images that I'm going to share with you, I want to show how with a bit more tweaking and spending a bit more time on it, you can come up with something really quite spectacular. You know, I had 2 people throwing the flower in this shot. We had, the timing was absolutely pivotal in terms of getting the flower where it was in the shot. We used a few different color balances to see how we could get different scenarios and how that would look in terms of imaging. And even here's an example where I had that misfire that I was talking about on the live shoot, if you want to call it misfire, where the front flash isn't firing, so you get this wonderful sort of silhouette image as well, which works really well. And I wanted to touch on color theory briefly as well, because it's important to understand, you know, there's a lot out there, you can easily find it if you look, otherwise just get in touch and I'm happy to share some information. But color theory is really important in understanding how the choice of color that you make will have a big impact on how your viewer connects with your image. You know, the setups that I used here were very contrasty. The colors were on opposite sides of the color wheel, opposite sides of the spectrum, so it creates a lot of contrast naturally just by doing that. And that's not necessarily always what you want to do. Sometimes you might just want to use one color or a single range, sort of tonal range of colors, and that will get across a different message. And here's actually an example from a different shoot that I did, where I was working just with a single set of color tones. And look, there's no right or wrong in what color choice you make, but certainly if you look into color theory and you try to understand at least the basics, that will help you in determining what colors you're going to use to send what particular message you want to send when you're creating these images. So for example, red, it's a really evocative color, it's really emotional and passionate and fiery. It speaks to anger, but it also speaks to love, right? Whereas blue talks of trustworthiness and loyalty, but it can also, on the flip scale, sort of send across messages of loneliness or depression. So it's really important that you think about your color choice. And there's no right or wrong to this. There's no specific selection of colors that you have to make. That's entirely up to you. But the colors that you choose, because they're hitting this flower wall, if you like, it's going to be a big wash of color. So it really will impact your image, and your viewers will see that color. They can't miss it, right? So think carefully about what you choose to create that unique kind of image for your viewer. So the setup that I used here was exactly the same as you saw in the live shoot. You know, it was a front light on the model, 2 backlights either side with colored gels in them. The key difference here was that we shot this inside of a cave, so there was little to no breeze to speak of. So it was all down to the throwing of the flower and how we threw that, and we used big sweeping motions to kind of make sure that flower went all over. And the result is this kind of lovely misty kind of veil of colour that happens as the flower's falling. And I mean, I've shot images before where I've chucked flour straight at the model and it creates this sort of explosion effect, as you can see here. But where you want this really sort of surreal kind of backdrop, then those big sweeping motions behind the model and then lighting that up creates that effect. I think on this particular shoot we probably used 1, if not 2 whole bags of flour, and you know, that's the great thing about it. It's readily available, it's cheap and cheerful material, you can get it in any shop, And as I've said before though, take care of the safety of your equipment and your models. Keep a good distance between the flashes that you use and where you're throwing the flour and where the model is. You know, it's okay to throw flour at the model, but don't throw it at the lights themselves. The other thing to think about in this is you shouldn't just worry about the safety aspect. You need to think about the cleanup operation that you're going to have afterwards. You know, it will leave a mess whether you're shooting indoors or outdoors, and you really should tidy it up and sweep up as much as you can when you're done. You know, chuck it in a bin bag and then dispose of it when you can. It's easy enough as well to pat off of clothes and off of skin and blow out of hair and whatnot, but if you get a damp or a wet surface, or if the model's wet, that flour's going to stick, and that ain't great, you know. So try to avoid situations where you're going to have dampness, because that's going to make it much harder to get rid of the flour. You know, once that flour gets wet, it gets sticky, and you want to be baking a cake, not a model. So I hope you enjoyed that shoot. I hope you enjoyed these extra images that I shared. I look forward to speaking to some of you during the show and after the show. You know, you can send me an email or catch up on any of the social medias that are out there. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things, so just get in touch. Happy to answer any questions. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you learned something from it, and look forward to catching up with you again soon. In the meantime, all the best and take care.